Here we are live.
All right. Good morning. Yeah, you guys can see me on Facebook?
I'm waiting.
Okay.
Not seeing it yet.
I see us.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Yep, I do.
Okay.
I see us.
Yep. Got it.
Excellent. Well, good morning. Welcome to Gardening Tip Live. I'm Lee Cheek. I'm a master gardener, and I have with me my friends, Toby Johnson, fellow master gardener, and Brian Townsend. We are so glad that you all could join us this morning. Yeah, I know you're missing Amy Hahn. We are missing her too. But she is at the Hummingbird Festival. And so I'm gonna put a link to the Hummingbird Festival in case you want to go out and say hi to Amy this morning. So that's what we're doing this morning is we are going to talk about our gardens. And so this week Amy posted a survey about what you wanted to hear about today. Oh, and please post in the comments that you're listening to us today, and if you have any questions, we'd be glad to help you this morning as we're able. Um, uh, and thank you, Toby, for all your great posts. So anyway, one of the things that y'all wanted to hear about was about squash vine borers. And so I've found some interesting resources. And one of the things that, let me see if I go ahead and share my screen. And there it is, share. So I found this great video resource about the squash vine borer life cycle. And so, first it is a black and orange moth with a wingspan of about an inch to a half an inch. And the female moths will lay their eggs on the stems between May and June. And these eggs will hatch into worms in a week's time and bore into the stem. And so I have a good friend of mine. What she goes out every morning is looks for the eggs, and she takes duct tape, the sticky side of the duct tape out, and she goes around and gets these eggs off of her plants every morning. And so she's looking for them. And then they burrow into the stem, and once they then they then make the plant die once they have hatched. And so several friends use neem oil on their stems to prevent the laying of the eggs. But I'm a no pesticide girl. So anyway, that is, and that's what. You got any comments on squash vine borers, Brian?
I would say something. I think Miss Amy mentioned something like that last week or the week before. But some people, if they catch the symptoms early, the end of the vines start wilting a little bit, and they know that they've gotten adequate water and stuff. If they go back to the other end where the vine goes into the ground, they may be able to see a little bit of frass or a little bit of pushed away, and that's an indication you've got vine borers in there. to salvage it, you can take a very sharp knife or a razor blade and cut lengthwise, just a little bit above where the vine goes into the ground, and then gently open that up, and very likely you'll see the vine borer right there, and it's easy picking it out, and you can throw it on the sidewalk or driveway or something else and let the birds come pick them up.
Feed the birds.
Yes.
I mean, they could come in and take out your plant overnight, it feels like.
Yeah.
So you have to keep it really, and what kind of plants? They're mostly attacking squashes, right? Like your
Yes.
zucchini
Right.
and your
Yes.
crookneck squash.
Yep.
Yeah, I've had that happen where you walk out and your whole plant is just boop, wilted.
Yeah.
I've had one lady that makes a game out of it. She apparently has quite a few squash vines, and she will go looking for them, and she will pull them out, and the birds are waiting in the trees around her, and she throws them up in the air, and the birds will catch them in midair.
Oh my goodness.
She lives here in Knox County area somewhere.
That's fun.
Yeah.
High levels of fun.
It'd
Yeah.
be
So
my luck. Right? I would throw this little squash borer. I would throw it up in the air, and all of a sudden I need to sneeze, and I open my mouth, and then it drops in and goes past my tongue.
Well, you know, good protein.
Thank you for the warning. I mean, thank you for the help.
So the only things folks can do is keep an eye out. They can pluck the babies off.
Right.
They can find it and cut the one vine that has the vine borer and take that out.
Mhm.
Or they can use neem oil. And do they only put neem oil on the vines, or do they put it on the leaves as well?
I tend to put it on the vine. Yeah.
I think Miss Amy said something about injecting BT into the vine.
Oh, really?
I
How
think
do
she said that.
Do you have to inject it, or can you just powder it on?
Well, it would be a liquid, I think. But I think she said inject it. But
Let me look that up.
yeah,
Tea or squash. Does everybody know what BT is? Maybe we should talk about that.
yeah, Bacteria steringensis.
Thank you,
Yes, it is.
Those are also my initials. Not the bacteria. So I meant Brian Townsend.
So I'm seeing yes, Bacillus thuringiensis, bacterial I have this stuff at home and I can't even pronounce.
Yeah.
Is an effective method for controlling squash vine borers, but it needs to be injected into the squash stems, not sprayed on the surface. It is a bacteria that kills caterpillars when they ingest it. So it needs to be inside them where the borers live. So the borers are living inside your stems. It's a biological control agent, meaning it's safe for humans, pets, and other beneficial insects, but it is harmful to caterpillars. So the other use I've used it for is for anything that moths are going to get into. You know, cabbage moths so all my crucifers, I will like spray the powder on the leaves. So those the caterpillars die. So, but it's not harmful at all to humans. It's not yeah. So anyway, so yes. So how does injection happen? You dilute the BT concentrate with water according to the product instructions. This goes with whether you're using a insecticide, which we're into IPM, integrated pest management here. So we like to use, just finding stuff and picking it off and using organic products that aren't harmful, because we don't want to harm all the other beneficial insects. So we try to be very careful. That's what integrated pest management is about. And so in whatever you're using, whether it's neem oil or anything else, you want to follow the directions on the,
Yes.
because even if it's not harmful, if you use it the wrong way, it might be. So so you dilute it, and with this syringe or a fine needle, you have to identify where these vine borers are. It is quite the at the base of the plant where there's signs of stem damage, and you inject it into the stem. Um, you know, and then you repeat the injections every 7 to 10 days. BT degrades in sunlight, and plant growth can dilute its concentration. You can do it as a preventive measure when the plants first start flowering and when you see eggs being laid, or when you see frass or wilting vines. So it can be preventive or it can be helpful. I mean, it can be, you know, dealing with it when it's happening. So, if if you have the patience and the time and you really want those zucchini, and every year the squash vine borer comes and takes out your plants, this might be something to try. But you can't just powder it around the ground and hope for the best. It's got to be inside. So, I'll put some links to this.
Sweet. Thank you. I appreciate
Mhm.
that. So, yeah, so one of the things that people wanted to talk about was fall planting. And so, one of the things that in the calendar, the Tennessee Home and Fruit and Vegetable Garden calendar, is they talked about for August and for this week. Diane had a question. If you have a vine borer one season, can you reuse the soil the next season? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Mhm. But anyway, on the Tennessee Home and Fruit and Vegetable Garden calendar, they talked about this week was one of the things you need to make sure you're doing is you keep picking your vegetables. Now, this morning, I went out and I looked at um, my garden, and as you can see, there are proof that the gardener was in the my boots are there. I picked a squash that I'd missed, and it had gotten big. It was almost as big as my boot. And so, one of the reasons why you want to keep picking your vegetables is because you don't want those vegetables to one rot, and necessarily if you want them to keep producing, you don't want them to go to seed. And so keeping on picking your vegetables is important. And so, that is important to keep on. And then also inspecting for things like the squash vine borers is important. And now this is a picture of a pollinator garden that I planted, but also was growing some native lamb's quarter. Um, and I'm getting ready to chop that back. I want to leave the roots so that it's starting to it's going to break up the soil for me. Um, um, and then tomatoes. I'm picking tomatoes. Now, one of the things that you'll notice that most people will have this week, as your tomatoes get ripe and we have all this rain, is they start to split. Now I can still eat this tomato
Oh, yeah.
today. The one on the big one on the left. I can still eat that. I just have to cut out the part. But I got to eat it today, or tomorrow it'll mold. You know. Whereas I picked the one on the right a little early, so that it is ready to ripen up here in another day or two. It'll be perfect. Yeah. And so, yeah, Brian?
I'm sorry. I didn't want to interject with what you're talking about right now. If you want to finish talking about that, I want to mention something about what we're talking about, the vine borers and our vine plants. I want to mention something like that, but go ahead and finish what you're talking about.
Oh no, let's talk about the vine
Okay.
borers. Yeah.
With our cooler mornings and humidity, powdery mildew is coming back into the picture. So while you are inspecting for eggs, frass, anything else like that, check your vine leaves and make sure you're not developing powdery mildew. There are organic sprays and other methods where we can get powdery mildew under control. Powdery mildew is a leaf surface fungal disease, so it's easily managed as opposed to a fungal disease that's in between the surfaces of the leaves. But you don't want to let it take over because it'll get out of hand and it can spread. So
Yeah.
while you're checking,
Yeah. Now, one of the things I do to prevent powdery mildew is I trim the excess leaves, especially leaves that are crossing leaves. I trim the excess leaves from like my tomatoes and my squashes, and that increases the airflow, and then prevents things like powdery mildew and other diseases. Yeah.
That and not watering at night.
Not watering at night. Yes, exactly. Lately, I've not been watering at all because we've had several inches of rain this week. And I plant my tomatoes in straw bales, and that increases the water flow. And I get some good airflow because I trim the leaves and stuff. Yeah.
Since you brought that up right there, that's an interesting topic. I have several articles in my laptop on that right there. You might want to elaborate a little bit on straw bales and how to prepare them.
Yeah, straw bales. My husband had bought me a book probably 15 years ago on straw bale gardening. And so one of the things that I do is I buy them in March. And I start watering them every day. And they start to get loose, and I'm able then to get able to pull them apart, and then I'm able to plant the plants in late April or early May.
Straw bales don't hold any they don't hold water like you just said right there, but they don't hold nutrients. How do you feed those straw bales?
So I add the book recommended that we add when we're putting it in some non-soil things like vermiculite when I'm sort of making a little divided area for the plant to go in, I add vermiculite into that, and I usually add some tomato tone to feed it, and then I feed it throughout the year with I put bananas in water, and in about a week I got a light fertilizer that I can add to that. And then sometimes my compost is ready, and I will add compost or worm castings on top where it started to go down.
Now, if you put bananas in water, let them soak for a week and stuff, how do you keep your hair from not getting curled up? People gonna want to know about that right there.
Well, I've never had that problem.
It curls my nose. I know that.
Does it? Okay.
Yeah.
No. Yep. No, I have an old pot with several holes in the bottom of it that I use as a strainer to strain the liquid.
Right.
So I take out the banana peels and the solids, and I put that in my compost pile. But
So
yeah,
what happens to the, so a couple of questions.
yeah.
What are the benefits of straw bale gardening? Can you use straw bales in the winter? And or what do you do with the straw bales at the end of the summer? So a little bit about timing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I use primarily this book said you could grow everything in them, but I'll tell you, squashes did not like the hay bales. I couldn't manage to keep them upright.
Mm.
And that was a big problem for me. But Basil loves it. And Also I do things like marigolds and things along that lines. At the end of the season, I basically have compost.
Mhm.
Right.
Beautiful, gorgeous compost. Now, what I don't want to do is, one of the reasons I use the straw bales is so that it's like fresh soil
Mhm.
every year. And so I can plant my tomatoes in the same place without doing crop rotation.
Ah, that makes sense.
And so I take the old compost from the tomato straw bales and I put them out in my flower garden.
Uh-huh.
My flower garden is very happy with that.
So as long as you rotate the straw bale, you
Yeah,
don't have to rotate the plant.
correct. And where I set it, and I don't use it in the winter. What I do instead is where I have the straw bales is I put down cardboard and I make a huge pile of compost using leaves and grass clippings uh,
Okay.
from all the leaves from all my neighbors.
Yeah.
Uh, and then I then distribute that out again to other places, and then I set up my cardboard and my straw bales, and I start watering it in March, so that it's ready to then plant in late April, early May, depending on the weather.
Yeah.
Now
So,
the advantages of straw bale is it's new soil basically, and it drains really well because your tomatoes don't like um, uh, being
Wet.
really wet. They
Yeah.
like some water, but not too much. Yeah.
so I just looked online and you can use straw bale gardening in winter, including you can create cold frames with them.
Mm-hmm.
So there's different, and if seeds are coming up late, I mean, you're waiting for them to come up in early spring, they'll overwinter inside the straw bale. So I'll post
Yeah.
some links for that. So if anybody's planning on overwintering vegetables,
Yeah.
I
No.
did a talk last year on overwintering vegetables. I think it was last year. I think it's in our
Uh-huh.
guides. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Something
I have done potatoes and
Mm-hmm.
sweet potatoes in straw bales.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What were you going to say,
Brian?
Brian?
Miss Toby,
Mm-hmm.
you brought up the question about using straw bales in the wintertime. Now, one thing is, what you guys are talking about right now about gardening in the wintertime. That's right here. But I would also, since I lean more heavily toward ornamentals, um, should we get some difficult winter weather and we don't have any place to store our plants, you can put your plants up against the house, especially on the south and west side, but then use straw bales as an insulator.
Mm-hmm.
Just push pails right up against it right there. You don't have to prep them or anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, the one thing that I found with straw bales is that as you are getting them ready and you're watering them every day, is that you can see how many seeds. In theory, you want straw bales, not hay bales, because hay bales
Right.
have lots of seeds. But I still find straw bales have some seeds, and you're going to find some grass starting to grow out of it, and you'll find mushrooms growing out of it, ink mushrooms, and so I just pull those up, and they add to the compost. But that's the one disadvantage, yeah, that I've found. But overall, they're pretty weed free, yeah, which is very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, people will buy straw bales, and I've seen them at the store with leaves coming out. And people are afraid of that right there. You don't need to be afraid. Wind, birds, all these things help provide seeds. And they just collect it on that straw bale and set up home. That's basically all it is right there. If you break down the straw bale, you can pull this stuff out super easy.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's nothing to be afraid of.
Yeah, and the
Except,
other thing is you want to make sure you have good support for it. So my husband made me a pretty tall raised bed that's about 2.5 feet tall, a border around it, and then I use fencing around every other straw bale to provide good support for
right.
for the plants that are
Yep.
growing. Yeah,
Because it will break down
yeah,
quickly.
it will.
Yep.
Well, I really find that it's not totally broken down until about October.
Right. Right. Yes.
And one of the things that I found before I was a master gardener, I would had this spray watering system that I would water it every day, and it broke down in amazingly fast.
Yep.
So, doing a drip irrigation or watering at the base, it was less likely to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
That's one thing you cannot. I have people that have gone to the store, bought straw bales, and was disappointed that the straw bales were breaking down. I said, no, that's what is providing nutrients for your plants. So it's a sacrifice right there. There's no way you can keep that straw bale from one
Yeah.
season to the next.
No.
Not going to happen.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Gotta do new. Yeah. Yep, exactly. Okay, so back to fall gardening. Okay. And so one of the things that we need to make sure that we're doing is that we keep picking our vegetables, because what you don't want is you don't want rotting vegetables in your garden, because rotting vegetables, now that's great in your compost pile, but it's not good for your garden soil because you're going to have problems with diseases and other things, just like having, not enough airflow for your leaves.
But also insects.
Yes,
You're
exactly.
inviting insects doing it that way. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, that was one of the things in the Tennessee uh, home and fruit garden vegetables, is they said, keep picking, you know, keep picking those vegetables. That's one of the things that's really important. Now,
Oh, I was picking my nose.
were you?
Oh, come on.
You told me to pick it.
The other thing,
Is your nose a vegetable, Brian?
Oh, Well, I guess you can call some of that in there some vegetable
Oh,
or
please.
vegetative.
Enough.
Vegetative. There you
Gross.
go.
Brian's like a little brother that's like always. So I just posted the fall vegetable gardens handout from UT,
Uh-huh.
and it has a really great guide that gives you time when you should be
Yes.
planting. You know, what are the varieties that work well in our state? What are the, you know, when are you want to plant? And there's a lot that are, you know, we're into August now, so some things it's too late for, but there's some things that go till
Yes.
September. So there's a few things you could get going now, like lettuce, you know, radishes, spinach. So there's some things are not going to work very well right now, you know. I think it's past the time to really try to do cucumbers, do a second round of cucumbers. But it depends. It also depends on what you're willing to do to protect your plants. So if you're willing to do like floating row covers or set up, you know, like I set up sometimes my little low hoop houses that go over my boxes. So those charts are really intended for people who are not going to do much to protect their plants. But if you want to overwinter, and we could talk about overwintering on a later date, but there are still things you could be planting right now that you could harvest in the fall, because sometimes it stays warm a while, you know, and things like radishes, they sprout, and you know, you can pick a radish in like 3 weeks, you know, it's not, they're pretty fast. 3 weeks or a month, you've got radishes.
Yeah, because you know, so for Knoxville, the average date of the first, you know, frost is October 31st.
Mm-hmm.
And there have been times when my tomatoes are still producing
Yeah.
in November.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but you know, with the fencing I have around them, I can also throw a sheet over them, and wrap them in burlap, you know, if I want them to keep going. Part of the big problem with tomatoes is they like a lot of sun and they like a lot of heat. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So, but anyway, so that's the one great thing about the resource you posted, was that it has, you know, all of our Tennessee, you know, communities and their average last frost date, you know. So there are things that you can plant, for example, like leeks that'll overwinter.
Mm-hmm.
And cilantro and parsley and kale. And there are a lot of great vegetables that you can plant that will survive this frost and freeze. So anyway, yes, that's a great resource, Toby. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And so yep. It is good stuff. So
Some of that the list that you were talking about at the beginning right there. What were some of the other what was the next popular topic?
turf grass.
Okay.
You're an expert in, Brian.
Yeah. At this time,
one of the things that Toby shared with us in the comments is the 2025 Tennessee lawn maintenance calendar. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. I need to talk to the author of that right there. I believe that we can add some more in there, because we're having to address these issues with fall coming on, I hear. But yes, yeah, that's the calendar right there.
Yep.
And keep in mind, of course, we have hard copies of these calendars available, but you can get the digital one. And if there's some way that you can add notes to that as you're doing your own gardening, whether it's vegetable gardening or turf grass maintenance right here. Be sure to make notes as little reminders for next season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what, Brian, what should people be doing right now?
Right now, I would be doing some aeration, in particular for cool season. Turf grass, there would be your fescues, rye, and what else?
Yeah. So yeah, the calendar says to aerate and overseed to increase
Right.
top fescue
Yes.
density.
Yes.
So it depends on the
Yeah.
type of grass, the turf you have.
Exactly.
Yes.
Miss Amy brought this up last week, and I stumbled through that right there, but I went back to my calendar, and it's open to right there. You, depending on the condition of your lawn right there, you can do more than one aeration per year, especially if it doesn't drain well or if you have a thick layer of thatch. Aeration helps to open that up to allow for decomposition, but also for, like, say, reseeding for fall of the fescues or what you your annual perennial rise and stuff like that. Now would be the good time to do that, because your grass needs to be at least a minimum of half an inch tall before our first frost. Otherwise, you can lose it.
So if you're aerating, you're aerating and overseeding right now?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And what's the latest you can do that? Because I feel like we got to do that in our garden, and we're not going to be there for another week or two.
I would say, let's see, with the first frost date was October what?
October 31st.
Okay, October 31st. I would say the very beginning of October would be the last that you would want to do this, so you can get your turf grass up and going. Most turf grasses will start showing signs of green within 2 weeks.
Okay.
From 1 week to 2 weeks right here. So that's fairly good, but we need to get that height started on there. And if you have an established lawn and you're overseeding, we could probably be a little more flexible, because the taller grass is going to shield the smaller grass blades.
Should folks think about raising their mower decks right now?
But they
Or
should
when should
be,
they
yes.
start doing that?
During the summertime, Dr. Tom Samples, turf grass specialist, he and I are good friends right there. And he reminded me about this right here. I'm always promoting tall cut grasses in there, but he told me several years ago that we're having a hot, dry summer. What happens is, even though we're trying to water infrequently but deeply, and for the roots going deeper in the soil, what happens to turf grass is just underneath the crown of the grass blade, where it goes into the ground. That is susceptible to drying out from the heat of summer. So he says during especially the latter half of summer, we need to be watering more frequently but less. So when we talk about
So water deeper?
No, water less.
Water.
Well, okay. We normally say turf grass and many other plants typically take roughly an inch of water or inch of rain per week. Using that as a gauge right there, say, okay, it's hot and dry. I need to keep my lawn irrigated. Irrigated? No, I'm irrigated. Okay, never mind. What you want to do is you want to divide that. Say if you want to water 3 times a week, 1/3 of 1 inch, 3 times, instead of doing it twice or once a week. And this will help keep the crown of those grass blades moist enough to keep growing. Because the grass can die from the crown, even though there's roots down below. And we don't want to lose that right there, because that will kill the top part. It'll brown out. So,
Interesting.
but once we start cooling down, then we can go back to the regular watering deeply but infrequently. But keep in mind, October is typically one of the driest months of the year.
Mm.
So I keep that in the back of our minds. On our welcome post at night, I try to post weather forecast for at least the next 3 days, to give people an idea to where they can plan whatever they're doing, with taking a trip or working in their yard. So especially if there's any warnings needful. But like I said, October is typically the driest, so we need to plan ahead for that.
Very good. Yeah. So,
Well, Miss Toby, when you guys coming back?
We're coming back on the 25th of August, so a week from Monday.
Okay.
Yeah, my nephew's getting married this weekend in Leavenworth in Eastern Washington. Not this weekend, next weekend. And then we're coming back right after that.
You went to
So,
jail?
No. It's a
There's a nice
town in
federal.
Eastern Washington.
There's a nice federal penitentiary there.
I know. No, he's going. There's a town in Eastern Washington. It's sort of like, well, it's in the Cascades. But
yes,
it looks like an old German village. It's kind of it's cute. But
there's actually a mystery series about that town.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they're getting married on some farm, and yeah, we're gonna have fun, family together and all. So yeah, and then we'll be back. And I'm thinking about what I can possibly plant, but I'll probably be trying to overwinter some things.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna see what I can plant when I get there. But I have a roaring vegetable garden here now in
Wow.
Washington State. I'm in Washington State in Western Washington for the summer. And I don't even think did I share our trellises? I did, didn't I?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, so
they're beautiful.
our plants are growing up our trellises now. We're picking tomatoes. We've got a couple peppers, which is almost impossible in Washington State.
Yes, it
So we
is.
have a couple of poblanos. We've been picking cucumbers like crazy. We have still been picking snow peas. I put
Wow.
my snow pea plants like really far on the end where there's a lot of shade in the grow house. I thought I'll just put them over here because I got them in the ground really late. And so I thought these are not going to last. And they kind of dried out, and then they have a new flush. And I'm like, how is this happening? But we don't get a lot. So you just pick them and eat them when you're out there.
Right.
What do we have? Every single seed I planted starts and seeds. Every single seed I planted sprouted and is growing. So carrots, cilantro, dill, basil, lettuces. I think those are all the seeds that I planted. But everything, and my nasturtium is huge. Lots of plants, lots of flowers. It's so interesting when you change climate, and even though the growing seasons are very similar, it's different.
Not as hot.
Not as hot. Yeah. It's
Depending
not
on
as
where you are,
humid here, believe it or not. It's not as humid here in the summer, but it's been very sunny. Right now it's been raining for a few days.
It also depends upon how close you are to the coast.
Yeah.
So, Washington has like 5 different climates.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
right next to the Hood Canal. Like we're really close. We're like a couple miles from the Hood Canal.
Uh-huh.
What's your
So,
soil type?
well, our soil type is glacial till and it's very sandy.
It's beautiful.
Okay.
It doesn't hold, it's almost the opposite of what it is
Right.
in Tennessee is clay, and it
Right.
keeps the water and it keeps it. Here it's glacial till and it's just sand stuff. Just so I did raised beds, and because of that, I'm able to manage my soil. And I'm doing the hugel culture where I have the, the uh,
Big logs.
Wood
branches
debris.
and logs at the bottom, and then I have the layers, so it's going to compost in place. The other awesome thing when you first start a bed is there's very few pests. I think I've seen like pest damage on like minimal, a couple of leaves of like a basil plant. That's it. No slugs, no rabbits, no
Wow.
deer, nothing's getting inside our grow house. Um, I mean, I don't expect it to stay that way. I'm living the dream right now. I think after a while things will like decide to find it.
Oh,
Now we have deer.
now what about the deer?
The deer are walking
Mm.
through and eating all our apples and our cherry plums, and the birds ate all our cherries. So, and our blueberries, they're not so big on the blueberries because I really haven't been taking care of the blueberries because they weren't mine in the first place, and I just haven't had the time to really mind them like I need to. But they're not really liking the blueberries. But now the other interesting thing is we have a lot of Himalayan blackberry, which is invasive. And when I was a child growing up, Himalayan blackberry was, the berries were very large and very seedy and very bland. So nobody really liked, we had another kind that we called wild blackberry that really aren't wild blackberry. They're actually another invasive species, but they grow differently and they're not as intense, but they're, in terms of their growth habit, they grow more on the ground and they have smaller berries and they're more juicy and tasty. But in our garden, we have Himalayan blackberry that we've been picking. It's not as seedy, it's smaller, and it's quite tasty. And I don't know if it's because there's more drought, so the berries don't get as big, so they're more intense,
Hmm?
or if somehow they've cross-pollinated in some way with the other blackberry species. I don't know what's happening, but the berries are very different than when I was a child. And so we've been picking them and eating them, but we still need to get rid of a lot of it because it takes over your whole yard. But so it's always interesting to see how things change over time.
Now,
So yeah.
I always had a problem going out and when I lived in Oregon, going out and picking blackberries is I always had to take my sister's dog with me because there were
Mm.
so many snakes underneath
Oh.
the huge blackberry bushes down by the creek. And
Ah. Okay.
they were very tasty.
Yeah.
But you know,
Snakes or the
I
berries?
yeah, I needed the dog with me to scare off the snakes. Yeah, yeah.
We have small garter snakes in our yard, and they don't really scare me, but if they startle me if they're,
Yeah.
but they are very good for insects and whatnot, so I like to keep them around.
Yeah, I don't want to didn't want to get rid of the snakes, but I didn't want them underfoot.
Yeah, they're a little startling. The other
Yeah.
thing we see, my husband said he saw a coyote run through the yard again yesterday. Once in a
Oh,
while we'll see a coyote run through.
mhm.
Um, so that'll be interesting if we decide to get chickens.
Well, I have coyotes here in Knoxville.
Yeah, do you?
Yeah. We have warnings on the neighborhood Facebook page.
Uh,
Your dog's in.
yeah,
Coyotes are out.
yeah, yeah. So that's that. So those are the things we have to keep in mind. Um, we've been watching now for a couple of years, and this is like a good ideas for people who have a new home, is to watch for at least a year before you go whole hog into your landscaping. Just watch your garden for 4 seasons
Hmm.
and see where the sun is, where it's dry, where it's more white, where there's shadows, what plants are already there that are thriving, which plants are struggling. I look at all of those things, and we've been in discussion now for about a year and a half, just watching our garden throughout the year, and then deciding, okay, what are we gonna put
Right.
in? And
Um,
here it's very wet and very dry. So it's a very,
um,
there's a specific type of plants that are going to fit, especially in our front yard, which is, we have a lot of cleared land. And some of that soil, Brian, you're asking about soil, when they come in and bulldoze we have 5 acres, and most of the Douglas fir are gone because they logged them and then they bulldozed the land. And so any organic matter that was in the land, which there was probably a fair amount from pine needles, and there's
yes.
native salal and other undergrowth, all the different types of uh, ferns, etc. All that creates a soft, kind of, surface of the soil.
Right.
And
Yes.
all those trees are talking to each other through their networks. All that got ripped up by bulldozers, and then they put in turf grass for a meadow to feed their livestock. So anything that was there is not there now, and now we have turf grass, and it's on very hard soil. And so my husband and I are, we're really having long conversations about, do we want to maintain this turf grass? It's very large amount of land, and it's like we're not, and then we have a pond at the bottom of the hill that's sort of seasonal, kind of goes up and down depending on the rain. And we don't want, nitrogen going down into the pond. The pond right now, the pond water is very clear no matter what time of year.
Yeah.
So we don't want to mess with the pH of that pond and have pond scum and all. We have an invasive plant in that pond that we need to get rid of, that we need to work with a professional on. But so there's all kinds of things that you think about when you buy a new home.
Yeah.
About your yard and wherever you live, Tennessee as well. There's things that we did in our yard in Tennessee that we put things in. My husband put things in early on when he bought the home, and they didn't live. The other thing is, like, even if you put in a drought tolerant plant, you need to keep it watered and mind it
Until it gets established. Yes.
exactly. So, we're discussing, like, do we want to put in irrigation and do. We've never, I never imagined I would want irrigation in Western Washington. Like, what, you know? So anyway, those are just things. As you don't rush to, I know it feels like when you get a new home, you want to rush to get that landscaping going. And your HOA, if you don't have any landscaping, your HOA is sitting there telling you need to get landscaping. And if you have a new home, so I say hold off.
Yeah. I like what you said about leaving this, let things ride on for a year or so right there. One thing that people don't realize, depending on what time of the year is where the shadows are.
Yes.
Okay, because
Yes.
if during this growing season you've got trees that are leafed out and you've got shade, but if they're deciduous and in the fall they drop their leaves, well, everything changes.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
you may want, we want, and there's parts in our yard where we want more shade in the summer and we want more light in the winter. So deciduous trees are the absolute answer for some parts.
Yeah.
The other thing is, where does the wind?
Plus, I love the leaves from my compost.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's the other thing to think about is, where does the wind come from? We put our boxes in Knoxville, we put our boxes at the end of our driveway, and the wind, like in this winter, like howls through there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very windy when there is wind. And then the front of our house is where all the weather comes. And the people who landscaped initially put like Indian hawthorn, which is not even really for our climate. And when we had that big frost, that stuff died down to, like, it's tiny now. We've cut it down to like little tiny nubs. So sometimes even the landscaping that you're given when you buy a home is not the right
right.
plants
Yes.
for, they just go through and find out what's there's people that do landscaping that work with, construction companies, and they don't know what they're doing. Often the biggest mistake I see is they put the plants too close to the home.
Yes.
Like your crepe myrtles or your arborvitae. They're like way too close to the house, you know?
Well, they buy them small, which is a good thing, but they're not anticipating the
Yep.
mature height and width.
Yep. Yep. So anyway, that's just my 2 cents on. I waxed a little philosophic on that. So thanks for. But
I
it's a
haven't-
puzzle, it's a puzzle.
Yeah.
Another thing to consider too with any housing is your animals that
Mhm.
are in the area. And
Mhm.
okay, Brian,
No, I'm an animal.
you are.
I'm waving my hand, so I'm agreeing with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, you, Brian, you and I, we talked about that one of the things that people have been complaining about recently is
Right.
animal eating their vegetables. And what they need to do about that. And that's part of the reason why I have my fencing around my tomatoes, you know, is the birds can still get in.
Right.
But I keep out the possums.
Mhm.
Instead of going whole hog, saying you've got something in the yard eating on your vegetables or whatever right here, it's worth it to have a flashlight. Basically, these critters are coming out at night
Mhm.
and through early morning, and we need to identify them instead of saying we've got animals or whatever, and we put up all these traps or poisons and other stuff like that. What is the problem? What is
Mhm.
attacking this right here? If you say,
It
well,
is
I'm
still
not
the
a
skunk.
nighttime,
Yeah.
right? I'm not a
It's
nighttime
grubs.
person right here where I can stay up all night long with a flashlight right here. You can rent cameras,
Mhm.
Mhm.
but you really, really, really want to identify what the problem is before we pull out the big guns, if you want to call it that, right there.
Mhm.
Insects and insects included.
Mhm. Yeah, it's interesting. When I moved here, when we got our house here in Washington, I assumed immediately that the deer were going to take out my veggies. And the other thing is to talk to your neighbors about what they've done. And when I started looking at other people's vegetable gardens in my neighborhood, specifically one of my neighbors, I noticed that their fence wasn't that tall. It was probably 6 feet. And, rule of thumb for deer fencing is like 8 feet because
Yeah.
deer can jump. So
Yeah.
I asked her about it. I said, look, how I noticed your garden fence really isn't that tall. Do you ever get deer in your garden? She said, no, they don't jump. And it's partly because there's so much else around for them to eat. It's a lot of work to jump a fence. And then our grow house, we took all our poly off of it and it just has ribs now. And we're just deciding what we're going to do with it. And I thought I'd have to poly some around to hide my plants. Nothing goes in there. The deer see the bars and they assume like fence, right? Or
Right.
they just, they're out there eating my apples. That's what they're after. But so sometimes it helps to ask around. I put small like fence like this around my veggie boxes sometimes to keep the rabbits out.
Yeah.
You know,
Then just
sometimes I just say, you know what, I'm sharing my
2.5 feet.
bounty.
Yeah, you just need 2.5 feet to keep out the rabbits.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you can get like small, short, rolls of fencing and just.
Yeah. Chicken wire. Mhm.
But yeah, I agree, Brian. Some people don't like skunk out there digging in their turf grass, getting grubs.
But they're
I
getting
just like, you know what? The grubs don't need to be there. This is a part of life,
Exactly. Yeah.
They're actually doing me a service. They're doing a little aeration. They're
Yep.
it depends on how much you want to live and let live,
Um, part of what I talked about when I wrote about the critters right there, insects and animals were here long before we were. So we invaded their territory right here. They do not understand. They do not understand borders. They
No.
don't understand your yard as opposed to a vacant lot.
Yeah.
Well,
They
it's
they
10 o'clock.
oh, I'm sorry.
Well,
ahead.
finish your thought, Brian.
They are just looking for food,
Mhm.
just like we do. Now we have grocery stores and convenience stores and all this other stuff right there. Animals don't have that conveniency, and
Mhm.
they are foraging for the sake of survival and their family.
Yep.
It's that
Yep.
simple.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. You just got to decide what you want to share and how much, you know?
Right.
Yeah. So,
Well,
but
thank
I
you.
would expect to share. If you're going to do vegetable or, expect to share something at some time, you
Yeah.
know?
Okay. If you're over there right now, but Aaron's Meadows Herb Farm has plenty of time.
Mm, nice. Nice.
So
All right. Well, awesome. This has
Right,
been a
we
great
appreciate
chat.
It has. Thank you, Toby. Thank you,
Yeah.
Brian. And
yes,
thank you
ma'am.
all for joining us. See you next week.
Same time,
Yes.
same place.
Same time, same place, same bad channel,
Same parking lot.
same parking lot. Okay. Thank you all.
Bye bye.